Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's a month of service presentation of property tax foreclosure and prevention. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator with Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the a month of service collaboration. Also included is the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, and joining us we have Miss Oh my gosh, why did I just do that? Cecile Carlson with the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods. I just completely drew a blank there. And I'm looking right at her face. I'm so sorry. Carlson with the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, along with our presenting partner representing Lone Star Legal Aid. We have Ms. Lauren Masulo Martin, Samantha Guzman, and Francesca Linares. Did I
Yes.
pronounce it right? Linares? Okay.
Yes.
Who's going to be presenting the information to you all today on property tax foreclosure and prevention. In addition to that, later on, Ms. Shay Pinkowski with the Harris County Tax Assessor Collector's Office will be joining us so that you guys have the opportunity to ask questions of her later on. But today, we're here to provide you with this information. We I wanted to also introduce our other partners alongside all of us. We also have the Texas Legal Services Center, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, the Harris Central Appraisal District, and the Earl Carl Institute. And together we all make up a month of service. And uh, the month of service is basically the collaboration of all 8 organizations coming together on a monthly basis, offering a variety of different workshops, resources, and information to the community relative to asset protection, asset building, community empowerment, and the maintaining of generational wealth. We know that there are a lot of underserved communities that are out there that do not have access to a lot of information, that don't know where to go for particular resources. So we decided to collaborate and create a larger impact and try to reach more people and get as much information out to the community as we possibly can. Included in all the workshops that we do is our foreclosure prevention series. So this month we're talking about property tax foreclosure. Next, also included in the series is the mortgage foreclosure, including home equity line of credits and reverse mortgage foreclosures. That presentation will be next month. And also in this series, we have HOA foreclosures for folks that need more information about that. So because foreclosure happens in so many different levels, we needed to make sure that we broke that up to kind of break it down and not try to overwhelm you all with information about all of these different foreclosures at once. So we decided to make it kind of like a little mini series within the collaboration. But today we are here to talk about property taxes, property tax foreclosure, and how to prevent it, what your rights are, basically what that process is like, and they're going to also give you a little bit of background about uh, your taxing overall and how it works and where the bill comes from and so on and so forth. So this is your opportunity to ask questions of the professionals that we do have that are available here for you. Do know that the information that it is provided is for educational purposes only. It is not to be considered legal advice. However, we do encourage you to reach out to our legal service partners if you do find yourselves in need of any civil legal assistance. For those that registered to join us on Zoom, there's an opportunity to put your question into the chat. If you are watching us on our social media channels, please put your comments into your questions into the comment section, and I'll make sure that those questions get asked at the end of the presentation as well. So do note that we do record the session. And we want to try to protect your privacy as much as we possibly can. So we ask that you keep your questions to be general in nature and not anything really specific about your particular circumstance, because again, we are on a public platform, and again, we are recording, so we don't want to make sure that your information doesn't get out there for everybody to have access to. So just do keep that in mind. But again, the legal service professionals are here to address the questions as best they possibly can. With that being said, we are going to move right on into our presentation. We're going to start with our introductions and we'll get started. So, Ms. Cecile, we'll have you go first.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cecile Carlson. I am an outreach coordinator here at the Department of Neighborhoods with the Office of Neighborhood Engagement, City of Houston. And like Nia said, we are one of the partners in a month of service partnership. And I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. Thank you to our presenting partners. Great information. Make sure to ask questions. Take notes and remember that you can watch these recorded again if there's something that you missed or you wanted to hear again. We have a library full of recordings, so make sure to take advantage of that. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to our presenters. Again, thank you so much.
Okay, Samantha and Lauren.
Hi, everybody. My name is Samantha Guzman. I am a paralegal in our Lone Star Legal's AIDS Foreclosure Prevention Project. You'd think I'd be good at that after how many I've done of this. But I'll hand it over to Miss Lauren.
Thank you, Sam. You'd think I'd be better at unmuting by now. My name is Lauren Masula Martin. I'm a staff attorney here at Lone Star Legal Aid, also in our foreclosure prevention project. And I'll be here for questions. And Sam and Francesca are going to be taking the lead today. I'll ask Francesca to introduce herself.
Hi guys, it's my first time here. My name is Francesca Linares. I have been with Lone Star Legal Aid for about 9 years. I just joined the foreclosure prevention project in July, but I worked with the family unit in the Justice for Crime Survivors project, and this is my first outreach, I guess virtual outreach. So I'm kind of nervous, but I think Sam trained me well. So let's see.
All right, good deal, good deal. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Francesca. She's going to do our introductory slides.
Okay.
Yeah, so
swap your display.
Oh, no. Okay.
there.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, so like Sam said, and we today will be presenting the property tax foreclosure and prevention. We'll be talking about that. And if you have any questions, you can save them for the end or put them in the chat, and Lauren or Sam or me will respond to them. Okay, so as a reminder that today's presentation provides legal information only, not legal advice. We're not advising you regarding your personal property tax or home ownership situation. If you need help, consult a financial tax advisor and lawyer for advice regarding your personal situation. And on today's agenda, like I mentioned before, I will be doing the introduction and giving you information about Lone Star Legal Aid, on how to contact us, what areas we serve, and what type of legal issues we work with. Then Samantha will go over the bullet points preventing property tax foreclosure, like property tax basics, strategies to make taxes more affordable, property tax lawsuits and foreclosure, homeowner rights, and after tax foreclosure. And today, we will talk about how property taxes work in Texas and how to lower your tax bill and how to avoid losing your home to a tax foreclosure. Here at Lone Star, oh, sorry. Yeah, next one, sorry.
Okay.
Bullet points were wrong. So
Okay, well,
we
this
serve,
one.
yeah, this one. So we serve 76 counties by providing free legal aid and community education that ensures equal access to justice. Next one. And some fast facts about Lone Star Legal Aid. We serve about 60,000 square miles across 72 Texas counties and 4 in Southwest Arkansas. Our staff operates from the Houston office in downtown, as well as other offices in the cities, including Beaumont, Galveston, and Waco. Nearly 2 million people in the service area who qualify for help based on federal poverty guidelines. In 2024, we handled over 25,000 cases, assisting over 61,000 people, many of those who were survivors of domestic violence, seniors, or veterans. The next one. And who do we help? So At Lone Star Legal Aid, we help some of the most vulnerable members of our community, including children, veterans, seniors, people with disabilities, members of the LGBTQIA plus community, and individuals who are experiencing homelessness. The majority of clients that we help are women, and many of them are mothers that are trying to care for their family alone. And a lot of these people we serve live in rural or remote areas. They may face isolation because of limited literacy or language barriers, and many don't have reliable access to the internet or even phones. And in fact, more than 1.5 million people in our service area speak a language other than English at home. So language access is a big part of our work. We we have many people that speak different languages in the office, so sometimes we do provide in office translation, or we call a language line to help with that. And the need for legal help is far greater than the number of attorneys available. In Texas, there's one attorney for about every 380 people in the general population. But in our legal aid service area, there's only one legal aid attorney for every 17,000 eligible low-income residents. And finally, many of our clients do not have access to basic communication tools like phones or computers, or public transportation is very rare in most of these rural areas that we cover, making it harder for people to get help with legal matters. Next one. Okay, so at Lone Star Legal Aid, our mission is to protect and advance the civil legal rights of the millions of Texans that are living in poverty by providing them free advocacy, legal representation, and community education that ensures equal access to justice. And when it comes to eligibility, to be eligible for our services, you do have to live within the 76 counties that we serve. We do only handle civil case matters. We do not handle any criminal cases or personal injury cases. And we also have a guideline on that you have to meet the financial eligibility requirements for low income. And then these are the different type of laws that we do: consumer, employment, family law, healthcare, housing, juvenile issues, neighborhood problems, public education, financial assistance, and public benefits. And these are the special projects like Civil Matters in Criminal Justice Project, Community Advocacy, Crime Victims Unit, Disaster Relief, Environmental Justice, Low Income Taxpayer Unit, Medical Legal Partnership, Legal Assistance to Survivors of Sexual Assault Project, Eviction Right to Counsel, Fair Housing, Military and Veterans Unit, and Foreclosure Prevention Project. So, how can you ask for help? So, if you need legal help, you can apply two ways: either by going online to lonestarlegal.org and filling out an online application, which you can do anytime, or by calling the 1-800 number, which is 1-800-733-8394, and that's available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., which is our normal business hours. And the website again was www.lonestarlegal.org. Okay, and the next two slides are going to tell you about the branch offices that we have. So we have locations in Beaumont, Belton, Bryan, Clute, Conroe, Galveston, Houston, Longview, Nacogdoches, Paris, Texarkana, Tyler, Richmond, Waco. And you can also find this information on our website. And follow us on social media. Our handles are at Lone Star Legal Aid for Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. That was at Lone Star Legal Aid. Now I'm gonna turn over to my colleague Samantha Guzman, who's going to be talking about property taxes in Texas.
Hi, everybody. Again, my name is Samantha Guzman, paralegal with our foreclosure prevention project. I want to thank Francesca, even though this is her first time doing this presentation, and she did a really great job. I hope I did well training her. So today we're going to be talking about understanding our property taxes in Texas. So let's get started. If I can figure out how to work this. Okay. So how does our tax system, our property tax system work here in Texas? So there are three main authorities for the property tax system in Texas's counties. First, you have your appraisal district, then you have your appraisal review boards, and then you have your local taxing units, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So how does the path of a property tax dollar work? And I know we're all curious about this because you do own a home, you do pay your taxes. So the first step is that you pay your taxes to the tax collector, and then the tax collector distributes the money to schools, cities, and other local governments. And then they spend the money on schools, roads, hospitals, emergency services, and other programs. There are 4 stages of the taxation process, and I'm going to run through this and not dwell on it too much because we just had our property tax session yesterday with Amos. You can find that on YouTube. So the first step is valuing the taxable property. Then they protesting the property values, and then they adopt the tax rates. And then finally, the taxes are collected. So January 1st is a key date in the property tax timeline. This is when the appraisal district looks at your property to decide its value for the year. They consider what the property is being used for on that date, and whether it's a home, rental, or a business, and what the market conditions look like at the time. To figure out your property values, the appraisal districts use a process called mass appraisal. And what that means is that they group similar properties together and use data models to estimate their values instead of doing individual appraisals for each home. So they group you in with kind of your neighborhood and similar properties around that. So even if you make changes to your property later in the year, it's what was true on January 1st that usually matters for most of your taxes. So the annual property tax line is between January 1st and April 30th. Appraisal districts during that time will review applications for things like tax exemptions, special agriculture appraisals, and other types of tax relief. And if you qualify for a homestead or over 65 or disabled or another exemption, that would be the time to apply. Even if you miss the April 30th deadline, don't panic. You can still apply for your tax exemptions because many of the appraisal districts will accept the late applications. So if you miss the deadline, still apply because you could save you money later on. This is also the time of year when the appraisal districts send out your notice of appraisal value in the mail. And that notice tells you that what they think your property is worth. Not what it is actually, but what they think your property is worth. And if the value seems too high, this is your opportunity to get ready to file a protest. So the next timeline is January 1st through May 15th. And this is when you have a right to protest. You have the right to challenge the value that the appraisal district has put on your property, and that is called the protest. Filing a protest. Starting around May 15th, a group called the Appraisal Review Board, which we'll refer to as ARB, starts holding protest hearings. Usually the ARB is made up of regular people like you and I from the community, and they listen to both sides, both your side and the appraisal district, and then they decide if your property value should change. When all the protests are complete, the chief appraiser sends a final list of the property values, and that's called the appraisal roll. to the local tax offices. And that list is used to figure out what your tax bill will be in the following January. And then the next timeline is May 15th through October. And in September or October, which we are about there right now, local officials like city councils and school boards decide how much to charge in property taxes. These rates help pay for services and debts that they may owe. Excuse me. Your property usually gets taxed by more than one group. For example, you have the county and the school district. And I know if you're looking at your tax bill, you see a bunch of like Houston City College. If you live in a MUD district, there could be things like the MUD, which is short for the Municipal Utility District, or if you live in a rural area, you may get the Rural Fire District, or even, of course, again, like Community College District. So during October or December of the next year, tax bills usually come out either in October or November. And as soon as you get your bill, you can start paying on your property taxes. You don't have to wait for the January 31st deadline. But you do have until January 31st to pay your taxes without any extra charges. And starting on February 1st, if you haven't paid toward your tax bill, then that's when the penalties and interest start accruing and adding up onto your tax bill. And if you still haven't paid your tax bill by July 31st, then taxing units can start adding legal fees in an attempt to try to collect those overdue payments. So you want to make sure that you have your taxes paid by January 31st. And then if you're not unable to, we'll get into that a little bit later on. So this is a general chart of the path of your property taxes. So again, January 1st is the official start of the property tax year. And on that date, again, the local appraisal district sets forth your property value. Also, this is when a tax lien is automatically attached to your property to make sure your taxes will get paid eventually. And then again, through January through April 30th, that's when you can apply for your exemptions, your homestead over 65 disability exemptions. And then that's when the appraisal districts are finalizing your values. And then April through May, and it goes in a circle, that's when the appraisal district starts sending out notices for your property's value. Again, if it seems too high during that time, this is when you start your protesting. That leads us into May through July, when the ARB starts to hear our protest about our property tax values. And this is when you go before the board to submit your case. And then back around the circle, August through September, this is when the local governments set the tax rates that determine how much you owe. And then we move into October when your bills are sent. October is next week, really. So you'll start to see your bills come out. And then January 31st of the next year, that's when your taxes are due. And that's when penalties start. So, well, penalties start February 1st of the next year, penalties and interest. So you want to make sure you pay your taxes. And then again, we're back to July 1st of the following year. If the taxes are still paid, then the local taxing units can add extra fees for legal costs to collect what's owed. So we have some tax updates. So let's talk about some recent changes that have made property tax relief a little better for homeowners. First and foremost, the homestead exemption for school taxes went up from $40,000 to $100,000. And that means more of your home's value is protected from school district taxes. And secondly, if you're a new homeowner, you can now get a prorated exemption right away. You don't have to wait until the next year like we have done in the past. Just be sure to apply within 1 year of buying your new home. And lastly, for homestead properties like rental or for non-homestead properties like rentals and commercial properties, their appraised value cannot go up more than 20% each year if they're valued under $5 million, at least until 2026. And I know 2026 is rounding that corner. Also, homestead properties already have a cap where no more than 10% increase each year on the appraised value, which means when they're appraising your values, your property value cannot increase more than 10% of the appraised value. And I also want to point out, we're not sure yet, but just keep in mind and pay attention to these new changes that might take into effect. But in November, if Prop 13 is approved, that would raise the school district homestead exemption to $140,000 from our previous tax year of 2025. So keep that in mind. If it's approved, you get an extra $40,000 exemption. And then if Prop 11, which is SB 23, which includes the over 65 or disabled exempt add-on, it would increase it an extra 60,000, making seniors and disabled people with a total school exemption of 200,000. So if your base appraisal exemptions was 140,000, then they would add on an additional $60,000 to your exemption. So keep those in mind, pay attention to your news and everything come November. So let's get into heirs property. And I'm going to start this next slide. We're going to share a video about heirs property and why taking care of that can save your generational homes from foreclosures, utilizing, our heirs exemptions. Let me go here and make sure I'm set. Okay, we're doing that. And here we go.
Heir property that had been in a family for 60, 70 years could be lost for a couple of $1,000s in back taxes. That could be devastating to a family.
This house was built in 1953. I think it was a subdivision where they were bringing in the people from the Army. It was all what I said, reserve military people. My great uncle and my great aunt purchased this house in 1953. I inherited the place in 1990, I believe, when my aunt died, my great aunt died, and she left me the property. My brother was living in the home, so I was paying taxes on the home, and the taxes was still in Robert L. Boyd, which was my uncle, my great uncle. So when I tried to get the taxes, I wanted it in my name. Why they're not in my name? I inherited the place. Everything should be in my name, and that's when I found out that it was something to do with the succession.
Heirs property is property that has multiple owners. It's created typically in one of two ways: when a deceased person dies without a will and state law transfers ownership of their property to multiple heirs, or if a deceased person dies with a will and has left the property to multiple heirs. When you have multiple owners of a property, the property is generally at higher risk of foreclosure, forced sale, or tax sale.
I went down to the assessor's office and I started trying to do some of the legwork myself and found out that even they were confused. So I called legal aid and the process started.
In 2017, there was a law that passed that said the assessor's office had to remove the homestead exemptions from heir property until legitimate ownership is established. So we started to send out mailers to let them know that the homestead would be removed. And then after we partnered with Southeast Louisiana Legal Services, we were able to offer them a way to get the succession done at very little cost or no cost.
So a little over a year ago, we found out about a great new opportunity through the Federal Home Loan Bank to do heir property remediation work.
Through the Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas heir property program, Red River Bank was able to provide a $75,000 grant to the Southeast Legal Services organization to do remediation work for low-income families that were finding it difficult to clear titles.
We were very fortunate to be awarded a grant and have been able to help almost 100 homeowners at this point obtain title to their property and protect it.
I wanted to get rid of the property. I didn't feel that the property was worth the problems, the issue, the money. I really didn't feel, that it was worth it. But after everything was solved, and it was solved so easily, the home just had a different feel to it. It was like once the home was in my name, it was my property for real.
This is one of those issues that we can't just watch.
I'm able to get the loan now because everything is in my name properly.
This was one of those projects that went far beyond just the grant dollars.
Now we are definitely going to do 100% renovation on a home.
I would encourage financial institutions to take the opportunity to learn about Federal Home Loan Bank of Dallas community investment programs, because there are so many resources there that we can help our community with.
I've had a contractor out, I've had the plumbers out, so everything is now falling into place. Everything is definitely falling into place now.
It's not just the individual impact for a particular family. It's what happens to neighborhoods when you have unstable forms of ownership, especially in areas like Southeast Louisiana, where hurricanes are more and more prevalent. So that is just another reason why we kind of feel a fire under us to get this work done, to better protect the people that we're here to serve.
Okay, so let's go. Let me see. Okay, that was just a short video about how heirs property taxes can help the process of saving a generational home. I do want to remind you, and I'll get to this, I'll talk about it more just a little bit later, but having the property taxes put into an heirship home, a generational home, doesn't necessarily it doesn't transfer title. The house is still not yours, but when we're talking about property tax foreclosure, it can help prevent the property from being foreclosed on for past due taxes, while we figure out how to remedy the title clearing later on. We can, save it from being foreclosed on before we clear a title. So that's a valuable tool of saving our generational homes. But let's talk about heir properties in tangled title right now. So what's a tangled title? Well, when someone dies without a will in Texas, Texas law decides who gets their property. Usually heirs inherit property in undivided shares, and then these people are often called heir property owners. The ownership is not divided. The heirs each own a percentage of the property together. So if there are 4 heirs, each have a 25% ownership in the heir property. A tangled title happens when a home is passed down without a clear legal process, such as when there's no will or when no one goes through the probate process to transfer ownership. It can also happen even if there is a will, especially when the property is left to multiple heirs and no one is officially put on the deed. What that means is that the person living in the home may not legally own it, which can make it hard to apply for exemptions, pay taxes, or prevent foreclosure. So, that was then, this is now. In 2018, there is a new law, heir property tax law, where heirs who lived in the property had to do some kind of probate work before they could get their own homestead tax exemptions. And even once when they got the heir got their exemptions, it would only apply to their share of the property. So if they inherited 25% of the property, then the exemptions would only cover 25% of the home. And with the new heir property tax exemption, the heirs now qualify for property tax exemptions without having to go through the probate court. So what that means is that you no longer have to go to the probate court, probate the estate, and then go and get your taxes, all while your home that you live in may still be up for foreclosure. Instead, you just need to give the appraisal district certain documents to show that you are an heir. And some of these documents can include an affidavit or deed history, and I'll get to that later. And then the best part is that even if you're an heir and you only own 25% of the property, you can now get 100% of that exemption as long as you live in the home and you meet certain requirements. So how do I qualify for these heir property tax exemptions? Well, you must live in the property as your principal residence, which means that has to be your primary residence. You can't use it as a rental. You can't let your son or your daughter or somebody else stay in there. Whoever is living in that home as their primary residence can qualify. And then you must be an heir of the deceased owner and prove heirship by providing an affidavit of heirship and other supporting documents to the appraisal district. So when you apply for the home heirship homestead exemption, you will need an affidavit of heirship for the homestead exemption from your county appraisal district, proof of residence such as a driver's license and a utility bill with the property address has to be on both. And then you have to prove your evidence of heirship, as I mentioned, such as a deed, probated will, or other heirship documents. I know sometimes we include a death certificate of our heir, and sometimes that's tricky because death certificates are only given to your parents or your siblings. I know we've had some cases where it's a nephew who's living in the house and he, having difficulty getting these death certificates. So again, you need a lot of these documents that we might not have access to.
Yes, but just to clarify, a death certificate is required. So
Oh, it is required. See?
yeah, that might be a time to contact us if
Yes,
needed.
if you have difficulty getting that or other ways. And then the next slide, I'm not gonna spend too much time on it because again, they talked about property taxes yesterday in another session. But this is the form that you would use to apply for your homestead exemptions, including heir property tax exemptions. And it's form 50-111. You can find that on, if you're in Texas, the HCAT website, but also, in Harris County. But if you're in Texas generally, you can go to the Comptroller of Texas website and this form will pop up. And then if you're an heir property tax, for your heir property tax exemptions, at the bottom of that page, you will have to answer that question of, is this property an heir property? And then yes. And then again, at the bottom, do other heir property owners occupy the property? I have seen some cases where it's siblings and a cousin that are all staying in the house. So if yes, then you would have to fill out affidavits and have each and every heir living in that property signed. Sometimes it's just one heir. Sometimes it's cousins and other cousins. So make sure that if you're filling out those heir property tax exemption forms, you're reading it thoroughly and checking all the boxes marked heir property owners. So here are our required documents. Again, if you're an heir to the property and you're applying for your heir property tax exemptions, make sure you have your application form 50-114. Then you need to fill out your heir affidavits, which is form 50-114-A. You do have to have your property owner's death certificate. So the original property owner, you need their death certificate. Your most recent utility bill for the property that has to be in your name. And then,
And
go
it
ahead.
doesn't necessarily have to be
Okay, it
in
doesn't.
their name, but it does have to have the property address on it.
Property address, okay. And then if applicable, any court papers, if there are any, and then again, affidavits from other heirs who live at the property, if any. If you're the only heir, you just have to sign your heir affidavit, and that's it. So again, I'm gonna run through this one. It's just a residential homestead exemption affidavit. This is your affidavits. So it's long and I don't think we have.
Yeah, we just have the top of
the
the
top half of
first
it.
page.
But
There's 2 pages, but you only need certain ones.
Yes, so like right under this, it'll say, are you an heir property owner? If yes, then you have to have that part notarized, signed in front of a notary. Again, if you need help with these affidavits, you can come to Lone Star Legal Aid or, apply for our services and we may be able to help you navigate that process and in some cases, help you throughout that process. And again, you can use this if you have multiple heirs. Oh, look, here it is. It was the next slide. So you do have to fill that out. So this is for if you're claiming ownership interest in the property, including heir property, and then affidavit for the owner other than the applicant. So the bottom half is if I'm the heir, if I'm an heir and I'm living in my parents' house with my brother, but I'm applying for the homestead exemption, then I would fill out the top half and have it notarized. And then my brother, because he's not the one completing the application, would fill out the bottom half and have it notarized as well. And if our sister was living there as well, then she would have to do the bottom half as well. So just as a reminder, your heir property tax exemptions do not transfer title. That's an entirely different legal issue that you would have to navigate. This just is a tool to save your home for if there are any back taxes while you're navigating the title transfer process. So as a reminder, even if you're approved for your heir property tax exemptions, you still have to do title clearing work to record or marketable title. So to get the home transferred to your name. Next, so can I be foreclosed on for not paying my property taxes? And I know we all dread them, but yes, you can absolutely be foreclosed on for not paying your property taxes. Maybe you paid your property tax, your mortgage off, and you own your house free and clear. You still have to pay your property taxes every year. There's no way around. I mean, there are ways around it, but eventually they will come due. So let's get into that. Tax foreclosure. First, I'm going to talk about tax foreclosures, and then I'm going to give you some information about defenses and solutions to prevent you from losing your home to unpaid taxes. So generally, Texas is a non-judicial foreclosure state, and many mortgages can be foreclosed without a lawsuit. However, let me go back. Many mortgages can be foreclosed without a lawsuit, which means they don't have to take you to court. But we'll talk about that next month. I think October, the fourth Thursday of October, we'll be back with about mortgage foreclosures. Anyways, so foreclosing on a home for delinquent property taxes requires a judicial foreclosure, which means they do have to go to court and they do have to file a lawsuit and have you served to attempt to foreclose on you for unpaid taxes. If they prove in the lawsuit that the taxes are owed, then they will get a court order allowing them to foreclose on your home and selling it at a foreclosure sale. Once the taxing unit, once they have the court order granting that foreclosure, they must send a notice to a foreclosure sale with at least 21 days before the scheduled sale. And the scheduled sale can only happen on the first Tuesday of every month. However, we have seen some counties that only have foreclosure sales every quarter. So that means once every 3 months. And they don't have to prove that they sent you a notice. So again, they don't have to prove that they sent you a letter, that they were going to sell it. Once they get that order, it's done. But there are some legal remedies. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. So option one for preventing a foreclosure for property taxes is that you may qualify for a payment plan. So some homeowners are allowed to break up their property tax bill into 4 equal payments with no penalties or no interest added, as long as they qualify and act by the deadline. This option is available to folks or people who are age 65 or older or disabled veterans, or their unmarried surviving spouses who qualify for an exemption, or partially disabled veterans with a donated home and their surviving spouses. And to use this option, you need to make your first payment before and request an installment plan before February 1st of each year. So if you fall into one of those categories and you're not going to be able to pay your taxes by January 31st, you might want to reach out to your taxing units and see if you qualify for that installment plan. And then the plan will cover all the taxing units on your bill, not just one part. So if you reach out to Harris Central Appraisal District for an installment plan and you live in a MUD district, or if you live outside of HISD, that installment plan will be covered for all of them, not just Harris Central Appraisal District. So there's another plan is if you qualify for the 4 payment plan, here's how that timeline works. Your first payment, of course, must be made by February 1st. And then you also need to tell the tax office you're choosing that installment option. The second payment will be due by April 1st and the third June 1st, followed by the fourth and final payment, which will be due August 1st. And then it's very important that you have to let the tax office know that you're using that option. And then you also have to make your first payment on time. If you miss that first payment, you may lose the chance to pay in installments. It's on their website, so keep that in mind. You have to make your first payment by February 1st. So in addition to the 4 payment plan, some local tax offices may offer a 2 payment plan. And with that plan, you pay the first half by December 1st, and then the second half by July 1st, with no penalties or interest charged to your tax bill. I just want to remind you that not all counties or cities offer this particular plan, so check with your local tax office to see if this option is available in your area. Also, if your home is in a disaster area and was damaged, you may also qualify to pay in 4 equal installments, even if you're not over 65 or disabled. So always contact your tax office after a disaster to see what help is available in your area. Then we have another payment plan where you may set up a payment plan of 12 to 36 months with the tax offices or the taxing units attorneys. So if you've already been sued, you want to reach out to your taxing units attorneys to see to request a 12 to 36 month payment plan. And I want to remind you that some homeowners have more than one tax office. So keep that in mind when you're requesting these tax payment plans, that you have to collect each and every tax office that collects taxes for your homes. And if you do have a homestead exemption, you can ask the tax office for a payment plan. And they must give you one, with the exception of if you've had a payment plan within the past 2 years. So if you've had a payment plan that ended this year and you want to ask for a payment plan for next year's taxes, you do have to wait up to 24 months to request a new payment plan. So keep that in mind. You can't get one. I know they were doing them where if you had one, you can get another one, but because we're out of COVID, they've changed it back to the original plan to where you do have to wait 24 months before you ask for a new plan. And so this is the website for our tax assessor. This is where you go and you pay your taxes, and then you request your payment plans and whatnot. Harris County allows you to apply for a payment plan online, but that's only Harris County. It doesn't include your MUD district. It doesn't include any school districts. So make sure you're following up with each of your taxing entities. But this is what our Harris County tax assessor website looks like. So if you qualify for a penalty-free installment plan under Texas law, your mortgage company has to honor it. I know a lot of us that have mortgages are required to pay our property taxes every year, and sometimes they're included in escrow. But if you request a payment plan because they're not included in escrow, they have to honor it. But be careful, because if your taxes are already delinquent, then the payment plan will include those penalties and fees, and that's different. And then again, if you do have a mortgage, it's very important to tell your mortgage company, both by phone and in writing, that you're on a legal payment plan that doesn't include penalties. If you don't, then they might pay the taxes for you and treat it like you're in default on your mortgage, even though you're on a valid plan. So make sure you're keeping your mortgage companies informed by phone and by writing. And I would suggest doing a certified mail, even though it might not be required, but it's better safe than sorry. Better to be safe than sorry, to keep them updated on your payment plans with your taxing entities. So option 2, you might qualify for an exemption or tax deferral, which we talked about. But let's get into that more. So homestead exemptions, we already know what they are and how they affect your taxes. But you have your homestead exemptions, your general homestead exemptions, your elderly or disabled exemptions, including your property owners. And then there are also different exemptions for disabled veterans and agricultural land. And some taxing units may offer more generous exemption amounts when they're allowed by law. Then you have your tax deferrals, which is a great and valuable tool with exemptions. So with the tax deferral, it will allow you to defer your taxes, which means put off your deadline to pay your taxes, and it can prevent tax foreclosure. The tax deferral doesn't mean you're not taxed, you're still taxed every year, and your unpaid taxes accrue interest, so they do collect interest, but instead of the traditional 10% interest, they lower it down to 5%. Tax deferrals only to apply to a person's residence homestead, which means you have to live in that home. You must be 65 or older, or if you have a documented disability, you may qualify. I believe you cannot also have a mortgage on your home. Your home has to be paid off. And again, the tax deferrals don't mean you never have to pay taxes again. It just means you don't have to pay your taxes while you're still living in that home, but they will become due once you're no longer living there. And then to apply for your tax deferral, again, visit your county's appraisal district, and then you're looking for Form 50-126. Again, the tax deferral does not get rid of your taxes. They're still there in the background. And if you sell your home, then the taxes must be paid at closing. But if you live in your home until you pass away, your heirs will have to pay that tax. And I believe it's due 120 or 80 days.
180.
180 days after you're no longer here, or when the tax people find out that you're no longer here. And I've seen them not find out for years, but eventually it will become due. And I do want to make a side note, because I see this a lot in the work that we do, and it just breaks my heart whenever I hear our clients, our applicants come and tell us, I didn't know. I didn't know that my mom or my dad had a tax deferral, and now they're calling me, telling me I owe thousands, tens of thousands of dollars in property taxes. So make sure if you're taking advantage of these tax deferrals, you let your heirs know. Let them know, maybe they'll start paying on them. And I do tell our clients that we do help with these tax deferrals. Just because you don't have to pay them, pay a little bit, even if it's $20 a month, just pay a little bit if you can afford it, because and let your heirs know, because you don't want to leave them with this huge tax bill when you're not here while they're already mourning your loss. Just speak to somebody. And I know we don't want people in our business, but it's very important to let them know so they're not surprised. And maybe they'll say, well, Mama, don't worry about it. I'll pay your taxes this year. And even if they can't, you still have the protection of your tax deferral. Now, let's talk about property tax lawsuits and how some of these tools we just talked about can help save your home from these property tax foreclosures. So, property tax lawsuits. This is what happens when you have delinquent tax accounts, which can be turned over to collections effective July 1st of each year, which we talked about during our little circle chart. And referral to tax for tax collections will add attorney's fees. And I've seen some of these fees be large. So you don't want to let it get there, because then that just adds on to your tax bill, and then it just gets too much. If informal collection efforts are not successful, which means they send you your bill and say, hey, this is how much. I know we've seen those bills. If you don't pay it by the end of this month, then this is how much it will be. If you don't pay it with those letters, then they will refer you to a collection agency and an attorney, and then eventually leading to a lawsuit. So to file a lawsuit, the taxing units have to retain attorneys. And then the attorneys prepare these petitions that they then state who they think owns the property and how much the property taxes are owed. They must serve the petition on the property owners and not just whoever lives in the house. It's everybody that they can find that's an heir. So even if you don't live in the house, but it's your mom's house, they'll notice you too as well. Or if it's your house in general. So they must serve the petition on the property owners, and they have to try to have a constable serve the owner. So keep that in mind if you see a constable knocking at your door and you're like, I don't know anything. It might be your property taxes. And they are allowed to do alternative service, which means they don't have to have a constable. They can have an independent process server. But in those instances, they generally send a petition by mail and possibly leave a copy at the property. So keep that in mind. And so the taxing units that file the suit also have to serve all other taxing units that tax the property. So if you live in, let's say, Aldine Independent School District, then they also have to serve, if you're being sued by Harris Central Appraisal District, then they have to serve Aldine as well. And then those taxing units will retain their own attorneys and intervene in the lawsuit by filing their own petitions if taxes are owed. And I want to point out that if they have to retain their own attorney, then they're going to tack on their attorney's fees, which make your property taxes even larger. So just be aware of all of that. So if the property owner has died, then a neutral third-party attorney, or what's known as an ad litem, will be appointed in the court in the lawsuit to search for the owner's heirs. So that will tack on more attorney's fees. So let's say you owed only $1,000 in property taxes and you failed to pay them. These fees from the attorneys will just start stacking up and stacking up. And next thing you know, you're owing $10,000 on a $1,000 property tax bill. So then the ad litem may visit the property to interview the heirs, and then they'll also leave a letter or sometimes business card if no one is home, hoping that you'll call them and talk to them. Do not ignore these. Do not ignore these. Call them. Find out what's going on. Get to the bottom of it. We see a lot of people ignore, these bills and then these people that are coming to our home. And then by the time they're calling us, it's like, hey, I got a letter. My property is being sold next month. So communication is key in every aspect of our lives. So you want to make sure you're responding to these bills and then these lawyers who are calling you and whatnot. But if you are sued for delinquent property taxes, make sure to file an answer in the lawsuit. There is always a deadline when you're sued to file your answer, so make sure you pay attention to everything that is sent to you. This will make sure you get all the court notices and prevent the taxing units from getting a default judgment against you. And a default judgment means that you didn't show up to court. So the judge decided that they're going to rule in favor of the taxing units. And then you have to come to us, and it's a whole big thing. So make sure you pay attention to any of the notices you received. Now, if you are sued and you don't have an attorney, you can draft your own answer while you're looking for an attorney or while you're applying for Lone Star Legal Aid's legal services. But you have to at least file something. Don't let it sit there. Don't ignore it. It's not going to go away. We see that a lot here at Lone Star Legal Aid where people are like, I'll just ignore it. It'll go away. Nothing will happen. And then you're applying for our services because your house is being sold next month. So here's a sample copy of your answer that you can file for yourself. You can visit a useful website. It's www.texaslawhelp.org, and they'll have this pro se answer, and they'll even have instructions to walk you through filling out this form. But texaslawhelp.org as well has plenty of other legal resources you might be able to use for other aspects of your life, and it is ran by attorneys throughout the state of Texas. So Make sure even if you apply for our services or you're looking for an attorney, get your answer in, even if it's pro se, within your deadline time frame, because you don't want to run the risk of running a default judgment. And then I do want to say also as well, if you miss that deadline, still file an answer, because the judge may still say, hey, okay, well, they filed an answer. They know what's going on. Let's see if we can work with them. And then also reach out to the attorneys on the other side. So what to expect at property tax lawsuits? Well, if you're facing a tax foreclosure trial, it might be held in person or remote by Zoom. You'll get a notice in the mail with all the details, so make sure you read it carefully. And I know I'm guilty of just skimming through stuff and then I get mixed up. Like yesterday, I thought I had a training, but it turned out I read wrong. And I thought yesterday was Thursday and today is Thursday and it's this afternoon. So make sure you're reading everything and taking your time to read it. So this notice might tell you to submit evidence ahead of time, so be sure to follow all the instructions correctly and closely. And you should also get copies of everything filed in the case by mail or email. So if the taxing unit's attorneys file a document in the court, either they'll notice you either by email or by mail, so pay attention to your emails and your USPS mail. And then in Harris County, those documents are also available online through the district clerk's website. So take your time to review them. And I do want to remind you that the Harris County district clerk's website, you can create an account for free. So if you're being sued, you can pay attention to your lawsuit, not in real time, because sometimes it takes them a few days to upload the documents, but you'll have that information at your fingertips. You may also hear from the tax attorneys before trial. Sometimes they'll want to work with you to see if you can set up a payment plan instead of going to court, which is a great option. So answer your phones, return these phone calls. So what to expect at trial, whether your trial is in Zoom or in person, try to log on early or get to court a little earlier. If your hearing is at 9 o'clock, make sure you're in court way before that, because they do roll call. You don't want to miss that, because then they'll say, well, you weren't here when I called your name. Make sure you log in or get to court early. And then there will also be other cases heard that day, so you're not the only one in court. You just have to wait until they call your name. So be patient. It may take a while for your case to be called. It may take a few hours. It may take 30 minutes. Just stay there until they call their name. And if they haven't called your name, go check in with the clerk of the court. Then when it's your turn and your case to be called, the judge may ask you a few questions. Then everything will go on the record, meaning it's officially part of the case. And then they will let the tax attorney, because they're the ones who sued you, they will let them go first. And then they have to prove that the taxes are owed and unpaid, which is fairly simple for them. And then after that, you'll get a chance to share your side of the story, like showing proof of payments or other evidence that show that you don't owe those taxes. If the judge then finds that the tax attorney proved their case, then they'll sign an order that allows the foreclosure to proceed and whatnot. And then they move to foreclosing on your home and auctioning it off at our foreclosure sales. So some key tips with defending your property against a property tax lawsuit. If you get the papers or a letter from a tax attorney, again, don't ignore it. I know we don't want to call. I know we don't like paying our bills, but don't ignore it, because if you do, then you might risk losing your home. There is a chance to protect your home if you don't ignore it. And sometimes we think, oh, if I ignore it again, it'll go away. Or sometimes it is overwhelming. I know it is. I hear our applicants call and tell us, like, I can't afford this. It can be too much, but don't ignore it. I can't stress it enough. Answer, call them. Just do something. Don't do anything, because sometimes they'll come to us and we'll say there's nothing we can do, and then we're starting to have to pack our boxes and find somewhere else to live. That's the worst case scenario, though. Again, make sure you file your answer with the court and show up to every court date. Do not miss a court date. Show up to everyone. If you need more time, maybe you can ask the court to allow you more time while you look for an attorney. or figure it out. And then again, try and negotiate a payment plan with your tax attorneys. And do that as soon as you get that notice in the mail, because the earlier you respond, the better. And the earlier you reach out to the tax attorneys, the better it is to negotiate a payment plan. And then be aware that there might be more than one attorney involved. As I mentioned earlier, each taxing unit has their own attorneys. So reach out to each and every one. Don't just think I'm talking to Harris Central Appraisal District attorneys because they're the main ones. Reach out to every single attorney. Don't ignore them. And make sure, it does take a while for each taxing unit to communicate when we're filing exemptions. So I can't imagine if you're only talking to one, then the other attorney, then they're not talking to the other one. So make sure you're reaching out to everybody. Again, if you need more time before trial, you can ask the judge for a short extension. Again, especially if you're needing, if you have a good reason, like getting all your documents together, or I'm looking for an attorney to help me, talk to the judge to get an extension. And then, last but not least, if the tax master's court rules against you, you can appeal to the district court. So keep that in mind. Just if they rule against you, it's not the last fight that you have. You can appeal to the district court. So, abating a tax lawsuit. If a property owner or an heir who lives in the home qualifies for a tax deferral, they may be able to pause the foreclosure lawsuit by filing an affidavit with the court. This is called an abatement. But, and I gotta stress this a lot, just filing the affidavit with the court does not actually start the deferral. To make that deferral official, you, the owner or the heir, still have to apply for the homestead exemptions, like the over 65 or disabled exemption, and file the deferral affidavit with the appraisal district. So you not only have to file your homestead exemptions, you do have to file that separate form for tax deferrals. You need to do both. File with the court to stop the lawsuit and file with the appraisal district to actually get the deferral in place. Let's go to this slide. If you are a property owner or heir living at the property, again, your homestead qualifies for a tax, if your homestead qualifies for a tax deferral, they can give you the tax deferral affidavit to the taxing attorney, unit's attorneys, the constable, and the appraisal district at least 5 days before the sale to have the sale put on hold or abated. So if your tax deferral is approved, you have to notice the attorney, taxing unit's attorneys, the constable, and the appraisal district at least 5 days. Even if it's less than 5 days before the sale, at least try. This goes on, like, even if you miss the answer deadline, still submit an answer. At least try. You want to show that you tried your hardest to stop it. You will need to provide supporting evidence showing that you qualify for the deferral, like your proof of age or disability. And then get written proof that the sale has been canceled. And then in practice, they cancel that particular sale date. You then have to get the deferral officially in place with the appraisal district, or they will post your home for sale again. Maybe not the next month, but eventually they will. I do want to say that the deferrals are a valuable tool. They do help. I did have a client here who got the notice. She was in a property tax lawsuit when they came. We applied for their exemptions and their deferrals, and then they got the notice that their home was up for a foreclosure sale the next week. And so we had helped them apply for their taxes deferrals, and I called the taxing unit, and they said, yes, they've been approved. We just haven't noticed you. Great. So what I had to do was ask for proof from them. So they emailed me, and I had to contact the constable and the attorney's office and let them know that she had been approved, email them my proof, and then the constable called me and told me, hey, we pulled the sale, don't worry about it. And the attorney's office, same thing, we pulled the sale, don't worry about it. But meanwhile, this client is freaking out because their home is about to, their parents' home, their heir home, their generational home is about to be sold at auction next week, and they have nowhere else to go. So we were able to have it pulled, and they're on a deferral plan, so they're safe for now, but their taxes are still due. So there are tools out there to help you save your home from a property tax foreclosure, but it's up to you to start the process of putting those tools in place and saving your home. But if you're not able to, what happens after our property is sold at a tax foreclosure sale? You have a redemption. So even if it's sold at a tax sale, you may still have a chance to get it back. Because in Texas, Texas give homeowners up to 2 years to redeem their property. And what redeem means to get it back. And in order to redeem your property, you'll need to pay all the back taxes and the fees that were owed, plus a 25% premium if you redeem within the first year after the sale. If you redeem during the second year, then that premium goes up to 50%. And usually you have to pay the buyer directly, but if you can't pay them, then you can pay through the tax office. This can be a critical second chance for people trying to keep or reclaim their home. And if you're in this situation, get legal advice as soon as possible. Again, do not wait until the last minute to redeem. So sometimes a property is sold at a tax sale for more than the amount of taxes that are owed. And so people wonder, well, what happens to all that extra money? Well, if that happens, the extra money, which is called excess proceeds, can be claimed by the former owner by filing a petition with the courts. But be aware that the taxing units can request part of those proceeds if more taxes built up between the court's judgment and the actual sale date. They'll ask for more money. If the property was owned by multiple heirs, and each heir is entitled to their portion of the money. So if you own 25% of an heirship property, you are entitled to 25% of the excess proceeds. So again, just to finalize, if your property sells, and there's money left over, don't wait. Ask the court about excess proceeds. You might still be able to recover something, maybe to help with moving costs if that was your primary residence. So this is just a sample petition of the excess proceeds petition. Some courts may have special policies and procedures for filing the petition. So make sure you check with the judge's website or call the clerk of the court to get more information. And then we're rounding out the end of this presentation. So what happens in a post foreclosure eviction? This happens when you lose your home to a foreclosure sale, then the new owners have the right to evict you from their new property. So these are the steps. First, the new homeowner will have to provide you with the notice to vacate, which means they have to give you a formal written notice to leave the property. And then in Texas, it's a minimum of 3 days. So they have to give you a written notice that says you have 3 days to vacate the property. And if you don't vacate the property within those 3 days, then they will file an eviction lawsuit in the court. And then you'll have to go to court. It's another court date and another trial. And so the court will hold a trial. And if the judge rules in favor of the new owner, then an eviction order will be issued. It's the same as, your foreclosure court, you will be able to present your case, but if they bought it, it's because it was sold at a foreclosure auction and the judge said that the taxing units had cause to foreclose on your home and sell it. So keep that in mind. If the judge does rule in favor of the other party, you do have the right to appeal. You have 5 days to appeal the court's ruling at the county court at law for a new trial. So just so we're clear, when they file an eviction lawsuit, it's done through the Justice of the Peace Court. If you don't agree with what the judge found, if they found in favor of the new owner, then you can file an appeal within the county court at law for a new trial. These are
And-
2 different courts.
Pardon me, and you do file it with the Justice of the Peace if you disagree with their decision and think they've made the wrong decision. And then the justice of the peace, sends it to the county court, which, like Sam said, is a different court.
And this is why Lauren went to law school and I didn't. Yes, so they will refer to the county court at law. So if you do get a new hearing date, make sure you're paying attention to the address where you have to show up, because it's not going to be the justice of the peace court. And then if you do exhaust all your avenues and you're still, required to leave, then the eviction order from the judge will give the constable the authority to physically remove you and your belongings from the property if you have not moved out by the requested date of the new owner. You can see other Amos presentations for more details, but they will come and they will make you vacate the property and start throwing all of your stuff outside of the home. And unfortunately, it's too late then. But then lastly, let's avoid foreclosure scams, okay? Once a foreclosure lawsuit is filed or a foreclosure sale is posted, it's public record, which means anybody and everybody will be able to see it. And unfortunately, this is when you start getting a lot of calls and a lot of letters. The person I mentioned earlier who was, about to be, their property was about to be sold, they called me crying because they got call after call after call. They were getting letters in the mail and it was just overwhelming for them because their mailboxes are full. They can't answer the phone because they don't know who it is. And then scammers often contact people in foreclosure claiming they can save your home, and they might ask for an upfront fee or worse, try and trick you into signing over your property. So they'll tell you, hey, I can save your home. But what you don't know is that they're having you sign these documents that say that you're signing over your interest in that property to them. So what they'll do is pay your back taxes and then the property is theirs. It's no longer yours. So make sure whoever is calling you, if you ask for help, not these people coming to you saying, I can help you. And it is really common for homeowners facing foreclosures to hear from investors, companies, and even scammers. So don't let them rush you or pressure you into signing something that you don't know, you haven't read yet, or you haven't taken it to an attorney to review for you. And if somebody does say that they can help you, check them out carefully. Don't follow any links they send you. Make sure you're going to the correct, you type in the website yourself. Do your due diligence. Don't pay anybody upfront without understanding exactly what you're paying them for. Make sure you get everything in writing. But also contact us here at Lone Star Legal Aid if you're having any of these issues, and if you qualify for our services, maybe we can assist you even further. But again, you can read more about foreclosure scams from the Federal Trade Commission at these websites below, or Texas Law Help as well. Both sites offer great tips on what to avoid from being scammed. And so that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, put them in the chat or unmute yourself, and either Lauren or myself may be able to answer them for you. If not, you can contact us for legal assistance at www.lonestarlegalaid.org, or you can call our local number if you're in Houston at 713-652-0077. Thank you.
Okay. There are no questions that are in the chat or in the social media comment section, but I do have a question. Maybe if either you or Lauren can kind of give a definitive answer here. The timeline, what is the actual timeline from beginning to end when somebody has a notice about foreclosure, past due on taxes, from the time the foreclosure proceedings start to the time you actually have to vacate? What's the time frame realistically?
That varies. It varies. There's no definite answer, because some will sit on that, some will sit on the first notice because they have to give you a certain amount of time to pay it back, but they'll sit on it. So it just varies.
So
It varies
sitting on it meaning what? Like
maybe they
so
get
they don't respond?
Yeah, well, maybe they send you that notice that says, hey, we're gonna foreclose on you. This is how much you owe. You have to pay it by this date, but then they'll extend it and they'll sit on it. And then maybe even forget about it. And then they're like, oh, when they're reviewing their cases, I forgot about this, and it's 6 months. And then others will be like, hey, you owe this much, you don't pay it by this day, and then they go.
Okay, so let's go with that scenario. Minimum. If
Yeah.
once they get the notice, assuming nobody sits on it and everything goes in the timeline that it's supposed to go in, regardless if they're backlogged or whatever, what is the average person looking at?
So first, I'll echo what Sam said. It can vary quite a bit. But just kind of as a general procedure, if I understand your question, I think you're asking once the lawsuit is filed, how long do
Yes,
you have? Okay.
yes.
And okay, so once the lawsuit is filed, all the parties have to be served. They have 21 days to, or they have to file, they have to respond after the Monday following 20 days. So, they have that length of time. Then the court would set it for a hearing or a trial. Now, there could be other complicating factors, like if it's air property and there's lots of heirs, they have to appoint an ad litem to do research. It depends on how soon the process server can find the parties, how soon the court can get the trial set, whether the parties want to set up a payment plan. They may abate the case while they're trying to make a payment plan. So all of that varies. Then if it ultimately has a trial and they rule in favor of the taxing units, they may still want to set up a payment plan at that point. So they may not choose to move immediately. But they may also do so immediately. And then they have to give 21 days notice. So what I would summarize it as is, on the one hand, it's not tomorrow. You don't get the notice of the lawsuit and you're on the street tomorrow. On the flip side, you're on a time clock, it's relatively short. And so you should really be planning, they're serious. And so you should be definitely planning to address the situation promptly. But hopefully that illustrates that there's a lot of variables. So we have seen tax lawsuits happen very quickly, and tax lawsuits say under a year, and tax lawsuits taking more than 1 year. So again, I would, to be cautious, like Sam said, like you've said, don't sit on it, don't disregard it, make the assumption to err on the side of caution that you're going to be one of the ones that races through. Imagine that that's the situation, and figure out what
Mhm.
all of your options are.
Most definitely. Okay, I was just trying to give people like a little time frame, or so that they'll like, oh, I got this notice. Oh my God, I got to be out tomorrow since I got the
Yeah,
notice. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
they don't, because I know a lot of times with the even with the eviction process, people will get the notice to vacate after their rent is late, and they automatically assume I'm being evicted. I have to go. So I'm just trying to give them a little bit of context as it relates to the
Mhm.
property tax foreclosure. What's the kind of time frame? So minimally, you're starting at 21 days to respond, period.
Or yeah,
So
the
we know
Monday
at least.
following 20 days, and I stated that wrong, at the Monday
Mm,
following 20 days. Then they
okay.
have to go through the whole
And
trial,
then
and
and then the
then
whole
they have
process.
to get an order. They actually have to get some more paperwork, and then they have to give 21 days notice. So as you could see, there certainly are, several months can go by. If
Hmm.
there's heirs, if there's lots of defendants and so forth, then more time, it'll take more time, but ultimately they will obtain that judgment.
I recall making the comment about heirs get the tax bill, or all of a sudden, I don't know, I didn't know. Even if you don't know, I for the folks that are behind on their property taxes, or have had a deferral. Sometimes I've seen where seniors didn't know that they were getting a deferral. They thought they were applying for exemptions because they get confused by that, not knowing that they still owe a tax bill out there, not a deferral. But for the heirs, if you've got a senior mom, dad, whomever, I still say look at the tax bill, be nosy if you have to look it up online. If they don't want to tell you about their property taxes, make sure that it's actually being paid, because there's a lot of little scams and things that are going on out there, and people are being seriously taken advantage of. And next next month on the
Mortgages.
14th. On the 14th, Lone Star is going to be doing a presentation about title fraud and scams and deed scams and things like that because it is prevalent in the communities out there where folks really just don't have that information or don't know that it's just that easy for somebody to kind of take your property from you if you're not paying attention to it or not aware of who you're sharing information with. So do pay attention. Again, just the heirs too, not
Get in
just the
your get
seniors.
get in your you're getting your parents' business. Get in your and I don't care if
Get in it.
it ain't your business. Let me tell you,
Yay.
property tax bills, property tax exemption, that information is online, free. You just got to know your parents' name or their address. Get in their business, and I don't care. My mom is young. Don't ever hear I said that. But get in their business because older people they grew up a certain way. They don't want anybody in their business. But guess
Yeah.
what? They want to leave you their home and they intend for you to pass it on generation to generation. But then you lose it because they owe $20,000 and I don't have $20,000. I barely have $20. I'm just kidding. But still, just get in their business. That's all I got to say because I see it every single day. I didn't know. Well,
Yeah,
guess what?
Have
The courts don't care about I didn't know.
yeah,
They
have the
don't.
you're right.
conversations. It's
You need
important
to
to have the
report it
conversations,
immediately.
period.
Yeah,
Have the conversations, whether you sitting around at Sunday dinner and you just bring up the topic about property taxes if you need to, or something. Oh, I just so happen to remember I saw blah 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 blah, whatever. Hey, mom, by the way, did you get your tax paid this year? Or I know property tax bills are going up or whatever. How much did yours go up? Engage them in those conversations to get them to be comfortable about talking about it, even if they're not willing to tell you. They may say something, but at least, break the ice with actually having the conversations, most definitely on both sides.
And then
So
especially if you have an adult sibling who is disabled and you're renting and you know your parents are still taking care of that sibling, they're not going to be around forever. And guess what?
exactly.
Sometimes it falls onto us, and then you're only living in a one-bedroom apartment. What are you going to do with your sibling?
Yeah. Yep. Most definitely. Most definitely. Well, I want to thank you guys. That's pretty much all I had. I see Shay did join us. Shay, is there anything else that you wanted to chime in or to say? Because we don't have any questions in the chat for you or anything.
So I just kind of wanted to reiterate what they said during their presentation with Lone Star is you really want to check and ensure when you're creating payment agreements with your taxes, you really do want to check in with your tax office because, Harris County is one, and we do collect for a lot of jurisdictions, but we don't collect for all of them. But not every option for payment agreements that was mentioned is available at our office. Like they mentioned the two payments, we don't offer that. We offer, the 12, 24, 36 for homesteads. We offer 12 for non-homestead property, and then we offer quarterly for our over 65 folks and disabled folks with homestead and over 65 or disabled exemptions. But I just kind of wanted to tack on to that yes, you do really have to check in with every single one of your tax assessor collectors because no two offices are going to function the exact same way. No two offices are going to accept the exact same um, process. So just make sure that you check in individually if you have multiple, that you're checking with each one of them. Um, Aside from that, and possibly adding to the deferral, being that postponement of taxes, is to just tack on that side that, it is one of those conversations that you have to have, and it is something that you have to be welcome to discuss with your relatives, with your family, with your next of kin. It doesn't seem as important as it is in the time as it will later. I just finished a conversation with a gentleman today. Uh, he his home is in a trust, and it was going from the mother to two of the siblings to two of the sisters, and then eventually will fall to him. But they were all living in the house at the same time, so that deferral got split into multiple like sections of deferral, so it was done by like
Oh, wow.
percentage. Yeah, so it's this big old situation, but it is definitely one of those things where you want to have these conversations because, the mom passed away 10 years ago. And so they had to go back and take those off, and they went back 5 years, and those 5 years had like 33% of the deferral not active. So now they have to pay up entirely to avoid getting all those penalty and interest fees on those 33%. So
Wow.
yeah, it can get kind of messy. It can get kind of crazy, but the conversation is important. And had they just been aware of what they needed to do, they could have avoided that. So
And hopefully in a situation like that, somebody actually contacts an attorney. Don't try to decipher and do that
no,
part on your own. Most definitely, please contact an attorney. If it
if
gets
you
that
don't know, ask.
complicated, if you don't know, ask. Please ask. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds complicated, even just listening to it.
Yeah, that's
So
the
I can
Spark Notes
imagine.
version of it. The actual conversation was about an hour long, but
Oh no,
Oh gosh.
yeah, that was
that's
that was a fun conversation. He was happy in the end though, just knowing what he knows now, but getting there was kind of rough because how do you explain that to somebody? You know?
Mhm.
especially the older that they get, because I don't know about y'all, but it's like some information I just can't retain like I used to. So I can imagine when by the time you're, 60, 70, 80, and you're still trying to grasp a lot of this information, a lot of this stuff, what you're supposed to know, it gets even more complicated. So one other thing too that I wanted to make sure that I share that the information, the legal information, the side of things that was shared is relative to the entire state of Texas. As Shay pointed out, some of the individual processes for the taxing entities may be a little bit different, but overall the law still applies the same way. So it really doesn't matter if it's Harris County, Fort Bend, if you're in the valley or wherever you are. As you're watching this, know that the law still applies to your area as well. So just do keep that in mind, because I
And
know
and
that
I
there's
wanted to. I'm
no, I just
sorry.
want to.
Please.
I know that there's a lot of information out there, and I try to make
Yeah.
sure that I reiterate to people as they're watching, like videos and TikToks and whatever, and people are just kind of put this blanket information out there that a lot of that information is not relative to the state of Texas, and it's wherever else. It's not like buying the like some people think that paying off property taxes will automatically get you somebody's property. That what do you call it? Buying the tax certificates or buying the tax, what do they call them?
Liens,
Yeah, the
maybe
Buying
other
the tax
states.
liens, that they think that they can buy those and then just that gets them ownership, and that's not the case. And you got people out there giving away free lunches because they telling people to show up at the hotel and we can tell you how to get, you know, tax properties and yada yada yada, and you're just wasting your money trying to invest in this kinds of thing, and it's not the case for us. So just keep that in mind. But I'm sorry, Lauren, but you were ready to say something else.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to kind of echo and add some additional context to what Shay mentioned, because that was what we see times when people's largest arrears tax bills come are when they didn't report the death of an air property owner timely. So, like Shay mentioned, the tax office can go back up to 5 years and remove exemptions. So, if you've allowed time to pass, but you as the homeowner can go back 2 years. So what we do always, if they come to us and it's been many years, we can help them retroactively, at least get their own homestead exemptions, at least perhaps lower some of the taxes, but they still have these arrears years that they can't, they're paying full taxes on, and they would have prevented that if they had updated the exemptions currently, timely. So not only are they required to, but it helps them financially as well.
And a lot of people think sometimes too that when somebody passes that their tax bill goes away. It's like the tax doesn't go away. The tax stays with the property. So regardless of the exemption goes away once someone passes. Well, see,
Hmm.
the exemption dies with the person. The taxes live with the house. So just keep that in mind.
It's a great way to put it.
And that's also like the mortgages. The mortgage goes with the
Hmm.
Lives
house.
on
Yeah.
and still due to be paid. Yes, indeed.
And the tax man is always going to come for his money.
Hmm.
Always.
Always,
Always.
always first too. All right, good deal. Thank y'all very much for providing this information for us this afternoon. Uh, Shay, thank you for being able to join in, and we want to welcome Miss Francesca for joining Lone Star Foreclosure Prevention Unit. We want to thank you very much for that. Miss Cecile, thank you also with the Department of Neighborhoods. We want to welcome you all, and then I am working on the October calendar. So before I send out the recording of this presentation, I will tack on the October presentation schedule too. And so hopefully you guys can join us for the title fraud and scams presentation that we've got that's coming up next month as well. But next week, what do we have next week? What's coming up next? Oh, tomorrow we have the voter laws and voter registration process presentation that's going to be with the tax office as well as with the county clerk's office at 1 p.m. tomorrow. And then we start the month all over again. We're having our savings, our money, health, and wealth savings presentation, along with the wills and estate advanced legal planning and why do you need it. That's coming up on Thursday. So look out for that calendar. If there are any workshops or information topics that we don't currently offer that you all need more information about or would like us to present, then please feel free to reach out to us and let us know so that we can keep that in mind as we're planning ahead for the remainder of the year as well into next year. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Tell us how this information has been helpful. Let us know. Has it been beneficial? How has it benefited you to hear all this information or to receive this as well? Or if your family members have gotten, we'd love to hear your testimonial. So please reach out to us and share with us that information as well. But otherwise, next month we also have Coffee and Conversation Resource Fair that's going to be coming up on October the 23rd. Do you want to give more information about that, Cecile?
Sure thing. We are hosting Coffee and Conversation, like Nia said, on October 23rd in the Palm Business and Technology Center from 10 to 12. It's a great opportunity for us to meet all the residents in the OST South Union area. They are in the process of reactivating their civic club. So we want to make sure to connect with them and for all the residents in the community to meet us, meet the other organizations, and get information on the civic club as well. So again, that'll be October 23rd from 10 to 12 at the Palms Business and Technology Center.
How do we get an invite for that?
Yeah, I can send it to you, Sam. I sent it to Jesse, but I can send it to you as well.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank y'all very much. You
Thank
all have a
you.
wonderful remainder of your day. You take care of yourselves. You stay safe, and we will see y'all next time.
Okay. Thank you
Bye,
so
all.
much for
Ladies,
having
have a
us.
good one.
All right.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.